Hey guys, this is Seth at Cistern and Grove. One of the things that we've been doing is giving people our budget templates, a spreadsheet that's in Excel. And we've gotten a lot of questions about it, people that have downloaded it off the website or friends or coaching clients that we've given it to and are walking through with them. And so I want to try and address some of those questions here. I know that we do a pretty detailed budget. There are simpler versions out there, and that's great. What I want to do is show you, what do we have in here? Why do we have all these lines? How would you fill this out? And what are the columns and rows? What do they mean? So if you just take a few minutes with me, and if you've been working through this and you had some questions, hopefully this will allow you to kind of do some of this independently. We're always available if you want to give us a call or send us an email, and we'll help you out with that as well. But the first thing you'll notice when you open this up, it says budget template is unlocked. So the main thing with keeping it unlocked is we wanted to make it available for most people to go in. You can add new worksheets, you can add new rows. If you're Excel savvy, you can adjust it and you can make it your own. And we're totally cool with that. Go change the formulas, change the rows, columns, use it as a template and kind of build your own that works just for you. That is okay. So the things that we walk through is this first instruction sheet. As you read through, hopefully this is self-explanatory. You can get hold of Alexis or me. Mine is Seth at cisternandgrove.com, or you can get us through the website if you have any questions, or if you want to download this, or shoot us an email if you want, if you need another copy. We'll try and keep these up to date as we update them. This red, anything that's listed in red is going to be personal information. So this is that red budget sheet down here. This is where you put in your information. So you click down here. Anything that has a comment arrow or a comment little red triangle, if you hover over it, it'll be my notes or Alexis's notes that will help guide you. So comments about what the item is or what the strategy is. The places that you are supposed to enter numbers is in the green. There are going to be areas that are white, which you might be able to fill in with your own detailed description. So changing the name from Cell and Internet to DirecTV or something like that. But mostly you're going to enter things into the green. Later on, as we go through some of the courses or some of the other hands-on, we encourage everybody to enter in their own descriptors. But for now, you can leave it, and hopefully we've made it general enough to cover everybody. There are some boxes that are gray, and these are the places that we really don't want you to enter it unless you know what you're doing in Excel. There's a formula associated with that. It rolls up in a certain way. So you're welcome to do that, but these are automated, so you're not supposed to enter into the gray. So this is the main sheet, budget, and as you notice, there's a few different boxes. We've tried to put this in a logical sequence, and this is the sequence that we've built up over some 15 years of doing our own budgets. As you scroll through, you'll see this first one is called summary. There's a couple places to put some information, your monthly salary and the taxes, and then the rest of this stuff is a roll-up. So these will be a summary of everything you do. Moving down here, the cash envelope summary. This is also in gray. It'll roll up on its own, and these are all the items that'll self-populate as you fill in the rest of the boxes. So you don't need to enter anything here. It'll add it up for itself. This is the stuff that as you go through, if you have a cash envelope system, or if you're using something through your bank or through EveryDollar or something like that, these are the categories and how much money should go into each of these categories based on the budget that you describe. And then as we move through the rest of these, there's this net calculation. We'll talk about that, but that's going to give you basically your take home. What is the take home? And then you can either do a tithe before or after. We recommend that everyone does a 10% tithe, and we'll talk through this. And all your giving. The next box is for all consumer debts. If you have those or are working through them, we put these because you have obligations to pay them, so we want those to be up front. So it's easy to see that those have to be paid up first. Then we have housing and all the things that are associated with owning a house or making rental payments. There's utilities. These should be pretty self-explanatory. You may have more or less columns. They may be grouped differently, but this is where all the utilities go. And again, these are all green boxes, so you would enter in things. And we'll do that. We'll do that in a few minutes. Food, groceries, restaurant, work lunches, kid lunches, anything like that. This can be simplified into one box, or it can be broken out. You could even add some rows if you wanted more boxes. Transportation, everything to do with cars, buses, tolls, anything like that. Clothing, medical and health expenses, and then personal expenses. That would include life insurance. That's where we put it here. Maybe it makes sense somewhere else for you, which is fine. But also things like hair care, personal money, going to see movies, recreation. We have vacation and entertainment, and I'll talk about as we go through why this is a little bit different from your personal money. It's how we do it strategically, but you don't have to be that complicated. And then we also have goal setting, and so these are the things that when you have gone through, you've paid off your debts, and you're ready to start putting into your future, into your retirement. These are the categories, and we'll show you how we've laid them out here. And then on the right side, we have an example pie chart. So all of these, if you leave them as is, they'll populate this budget distribution pie chart that shows you where you are. We've got numbers that show you percentage-wise what the ballpark should be, and then where your actuals are. An example, just to kind of give you a groundwork for a family like ours, where we're debt-free, we've gone past that, and we're putting a lot into retirement and into savings now. These are our distributions, so that'll give you kind of an idea. If you are, if you're way off on some of these, if your recreation or your personal is way more than ours, but you still have a lot of student loans, you have a lot of, you have car payments, things like that, that give you an idea that you're probably spending too much relative to a family like ours who is kind of on the other side of those debts and maybe lives more conservatively. So this is just for an idea. Your numbers don't have to look like this, but your numbers probably should look something like this target percentage. And you can kind of see, you can see my mouse moving around, maybe too jerky. But what I want to do is I just want to, line by line, I want to walk through all of these things and give an example of how to fill this out for a typical American family. So I just made these numbers up. Alexis and I sat down and I said, hey, what do you think of a typical family that you meet with, some of your coaching clients, what do you think their numbers look like? Let's get those in there. It's not perfect, but it gets you down to a zero balance budget. And so that's the first thing I want to talk about, is this idea of a zero balance budget. And right here on line 24, it says remaining or pad. That's just what we call anything that's left over after you've budgeted everything. It should either be zero or positive. If it's zero, then it means you got a perfect zero balance budget. And if you hover over this, you can see what it says. That's really the goal. And then for us, we try to keep it a little bit higher than that, maybe $25. Sometimes, depending on what life looks like, it might be $100 or $200. But the idea is to get all of this down to a zero balance budget. If it's negative, then that means you're probably taking on debt to subsidize your lifestyle. You're paying for groceries or car payments or something else. You're paying for that with debt or with pushing things around month to month. And that's where we don't want to be. So the whole goal of this is that as you fill this out and as you iterate on it, that you get this thing down to either zero or a small positive number. If it's a very, very large positive number, then that means you need to redistribute, and those could go to more debt payments, those could go towards savings, etc. So the first thing that you want to do is there's this box in 6 and 7, which is monthly salary. So if it's only one of you that's working, if you're just a single income family, or if you only have one source of income, you just use this first line. We are assuming that you get paid on some sort of a regular basis, so that month to month it looks the same. If you are irregular, so maybe you're in sales, or maybe maybe cash flow comes in, in the holiday seasons comes in more than in the spring or something like that. If that's the case, then you're going to need some kind of a more complicated or at least a tweak sheet. I'm not going to talk about that here, but this is just assuming that you get paid once or twice a month, or maybe every week even, but that number every month is about the same. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to enter in what that might be. So let's just assume that there's a husband and a wife working in this family. They have two incomes. The husband works full-time, the wife works part-time. And let's talk about what just the take-home is. The take-home is after tax. The gross is before tax. So what we're going to enter in here is what that number looks like before taxes and everything else are taken out. So let's just assume that husband, or maybe it's the wife, makes $4,000 and that the other person makes $1,000. Okay, so that's $5,000 a month is what they bring in. That's 5,000 times 12. That's $60,000 a year. So that's kind of an average American family would make something like that. The next thing that we do is we fill in tax 1 and tax 2. So this is just what is taken out from your paycheck that goes to taxes. That would be Social Security, that would be federal and state taxes. Those numbers are going to change, the percentages, depending on how many deductibles you have, how many deductions, and at the end of the year, if you've done giving, other tax write-offs. But I'm just going to assume right now maybe that you're paying 20%. So the $4,000 a month earner might pay $800 a month. So I just enter that in. The $1,000 a month earner might make 20% of that, so that's $200. Okay, so you see what it's done is it now says that you've got $5,000 here, $1,000 is going to taxes, and it's automatically populated a few things. The first thing is it automatically populated this net calculation. So what the net is if you hover over it, you can see that formula. So the formula is just saying it's all of your income minus all of your taxes, and that gives you net. Okay. If yours is different, you can change the formula, but that's the basic way you do a net calculation. The other thing it's populating is we set it up so that it's automatically going to give you a 10% post-tax tithe. So that's coming right here into your summary, $400, or right here in your tithe, $400. So you can scroll over this. This is automatically calculated as 10% of the net. If you prefer, depending on your Bible interpretation, depending on the church you go to, depending on how you interpret it, you can definitely take out of the gross. And in that case, instead of G2 or this, then the calculation would actually be out of the sum of these two. So the sum of your gross. So you can do it either way. I'm not going to talk about, kind of the biblical reason for doing it one way or another. The point is that that we think that it's in your best interest, and it's kind of something that's important for starting that path of biblical stewardship, to make sure you have tithe entered in. If you're not a believer, if you don't go to church, then you of course could still have a fully working budget if you took out all the tithe and didn't put anything in, or change this to a charity of your choice. So that's just a quick caveat on the giving part. So the next thing, let's say you've got a favorite charity, and every month you've committed yourself and you're going to give to something. Maybe it's Salvation Army or Red Cross. Maybe it's something you're giving to a child in India. So let's just put that in, child in India, and you're giving $40 a month. Probably hear my dogs barking in the background. So let's put that in. So now it's added up. So now in this giving column, you've got $440 out of everything you make, which is going towards giving. So you can add as many of these as you need. Now, the other thing I just want to talk about as we go through and fill this out is you don't have to fill it out in this order. This is the order that for years and years when we were doing it, made sense to us. You don't have to do it line by line as we do it. You can jump around and populate it. Makes best sense to you. A lot of times when Alexis is doing one-on-one coaching with families or with singles, what she'll do is she'll actually, instead of populating it in this order, she'll go in and she'll put in the first thing besides the tithe and the tax. She'll go in and put out anything like that comes out of your paycheck for health insurance or life insurance or things that automatically come out. So she'll kind of go through a sequence that might be a little bit different depending on the person she's working with. But for now, I'm just going to go through this line by line, and don't worry about if it's not in the order that makes sense to you, because you can put it in whatever order you like. So the next thing I'm going to go in is move down and say, okay, that's all the giving that this person has, this family has. And now the student loan payment that they have. So they graduated, they use their degree, they enjoy it, and now they get to pay it back. So they're making, maybe they're making minimum payments or something a little bit more than that. Let's just assume that they're making $150 a month as a payment. Okay. So now, because that was a pretty good sized chunk, you can see what happened is this actually popped out, right? So that now you have 4% is going into this red, which is consumer debt, and then 11% of everything is populating from giving. So as we go through, you'll start to see this thing fill out. So the next thing is a car payment. So let's say this person or this family has one car that they're making payments on still, and then it's $300 a month. Okay, so they put that in there. Maybe they have a couple of credit cards. They've got a Sears card because their refrigerator went out and now they're making payments on that. They've got another credit card, which is because they have a Visa or American Express or whatever it is, and they're going to enter that in. So I just put in some made up numbers that they had $25 that they're paying a minimum payment for one, and then $50 that they're making another payment to the other guys. Okay, so whatever that is. There are other lines, maybe a personal loan, home equity loan, whatever might be in there. So you just fill that out. Okay, next we move down to housing. So the first line is for a mortgage. If you don't own the house, but you do rent, that's fine. So you can just type over this and you can just replace mortgage with rent. So you just enter whatever that number is. Let's say this family has $800 a month. So we put that in there. Now, the next line, this may not apply to a lot of families. For us, it does, and this is the way we do it. So I'll just quickly talk about this idea of the escrow. We got to the point where we decided that we were going to escrow our payments ourselves instead of letting the bank do it. Alexis can, if you meet with her, she can talk to you in greater detail about the pros and the cons. What that basically means, and if you hover over this, means if you get like 20% paid down on the mortgage, you can pay your own insurance premium and property taxes up front. And so we do that, which basically means that it comes off of, we pay it at the beginning of the year or at some single point in the year, we pay all that up front. And then that way it doesn't get rolled into the mortgage payment. But you can do it either way. So right now I'm going to assume that they don't do it. They don't do that. So we'll skip that. Homeowners insurance, they live in a neighborhood that says they have to cut their grass and they get a neighborhood pool or something. So a lot of people, especially where we live in Houston, so a lot of people in the neighborhoods here do have homeowners charges. So let's say it's $50. Home security. We have home security, and it's probably a pretty important thing to get. One of the things as I was going through this and just filling it out, recognize that because of the some of the other stuff that this made up family had to do, home security probably wasn't going to make it. It wasn't going to float to the top. And we can talk about how we shift these numbers around. But I put it in, and then I recognized, oh well, if they did that, then they wouldn't, they'd have to cut out their groceries or something like that. So this is one way you would use it. So right now, this family would love to have home security, but they can't afford it. Okay. Next, repairs and maintenance. So repairs and maintenance, fixing stuff, equipment, handyman fees. The screen door falls off your house. You get mold issues that you got to cover, anything like that, a window breaks. So there needs to be some sort of coverage for that. And again, as I work through this, what I recognized is this family, because of the way they've got their debts and everything else set up, that it wasn't going to work out very well for them to be doing this. And so all of these other items, lawn care, so hedge clippers or hiring someone to do your bushes or whatever, furnishings for the home, decor, dishes, towels, anything like that, wall hangings, light bulbs, house supplies, paper towels, foil, cleaning supplies, furniture, house projects, paint, tools, hoses, housekeeping if you need help with that, or if you need extra people to come do some extra services. All of this stuff would go in housing. Right now I'm going to leave all of this blank because you'll see that the numbers work out if I do. But if your family needed to have some of these or was working through the numbers and you realized that it made sense to put these in, then this is where you would put any of that stuff. And so again, you can hover over the little red triangle and you get a description of how we define that. So now moving down to the utilities section. So this is electricity, water, trash, natural gas, cable TV, cell, internet. Let's just start up here with electricity. Let's assume this family spends $150 in Houston. That would be air conditioning in the summer and nothing in the winter. Maybe if you're in a colder area, it'd be the reverse of that. Water and trash, $30. It's kind of ballpark what we pay. Natural gas depends on the size of your house, depends on where you live. Maybe you need heating oil if you're in the Northeast, whatever. So $30. Okay. These other two, cable TV, cell, internet, everyone kind of packages these different. This changes for us every year or two when we switch up our packages, when we rearrange things. So I'm just going to put some numbers in here, but this is where these two lines, or you even have a third line, this is where you would put all of the stuff you're paying for. You put a house phone in here too, a landline. We need landline for our security system, but anywhere you would put cable TV, cell phone, AT&T, DirecTV, Sprint, Cricket, any of those would go in here. So this family, let's just assume they've got $50 for their cable TV and $200 for cell and internet combo. Maybe for you, it's flipped around a little bit and maybe you cut some of those out. Okay, so that's all the utilities. So now as we come up here, notice that this thing is starting to populate and look a little bit more realistic. All right, the next column, food. So this should be 5 to 15% of your total budget. So when this pie chart fills out, you can look and it'll actually calculate the number. If you didn't notice, it was self-populating down here that this. So for utilities, this family is currently spending, and you see the equation up here, 12%. So what it's saying is that this family is actually, based on their income, based on their living, they're probably spending a little bit too much on this. And so some of these things might actually have to be reduced or be conserved a little bit better. Okay, back to groceries. A lot of families will just use one column or one category. All food stuff, all groceries. We found that for us, it's a lot easier to break it out into a few different categories. One of the reasons is because grocery store is what we do, and we prepare for our meals. That's our cereal for breakfast and milk, and steaks and beans and rice and whatever that is, and that for us it's easy to kind of to plan that out. We even started doing a lot of stuff. You can order online, and then that way you have a very accurate total of what you're spending, and you can take stuff, put stuff out of the cart, put it into the cart, and you can compare prices. But we found that it's easy to break it out for grocery being mostly grocery store stuff. And then anything we would do at restaurants as a family, we put here. So if we go out for breakfast, or if we're, once a week or something, Alexis and the kids actually once a week, they go to Chick-fil-A. So this is where that would come from, is the ability to do that there. Work lunches. This is where we've divided into some either different envelopes or different debit card accounts. So for me, I have a thing called work lunches, and that's because I have a certain amount that when I go to work, I can buy a coffee, or I can buy soup at the cafeteria, or I can go out with people at work and have a business lunch or something like that. So that goes onto this work lunches. If you are taking sandwiches, if you're in debt repayment mode and you're taking sandwiches or leftovers for lunch, you don't need this, or you might reduce this down to next to nothing, whatever lunch and meat costs. Kid lunches, the same thing. If your kids go to a school where they need a lunch card, or where they have to pay for milk and pizza once a week, or whatever that is, we like to break that out so we can see it. For this family, let's just assume that they put it all together into one bundle, and it's $400. Okay, do it whatever fits your family. For them, that puts them right in the range, 5 to 15%. So that puts them at 10%. So for a family that makes $60,000 a year, that makes a lot of sense. But this is another way to use this spreadsheet is because you get these ranges. Let's say they were to go in and they realize they spent $400 at the grocery store, but then they also realized, well, they went out, every day, every time after church, they went out as a family with a group of people, and they went out Sunday, Sunday lunch at Chinese buffet, and they walked away 500, $50 a pop every Sunday to go eat with their church buddies. Okay, so that's, that would put you in at 250. So now that would say that if a family did that, now it's telling that their food budget is 16%. So that's actually putting them on the top end of what they could really afford to spend based on how much money they make. So this is a good way to kind of keep track of proportionately, are you spending too much? And it's real easy if you start going and filling this in. You say, well, my restaurant, yeah, we do eat after church. But we also once a week we like to go as a family, and we like to go get snow cones or chocolate sundaes or something. And so before you know it, you start adding in all those things. Oh yeah, plus I also like to grab McDonald's for breakfast once a week. Before you know it, if that ends up doubling, now you realize, 20%, that's way too much. That's more than a family that makes what I make. That's more than we can actually afford to spend on groceries. So this is very helpful for putting in perspective what you're spending relative to how much money you have taking in. Now, this percentage doesn't even matter whether you have debts or whether you're in aggressive saving mode, whatever. It just says for a family with an income like the income that you designate up front, it just gives you an idea of whether you're spending proportionately too much on that line item. So I'm going to come in. I'm going to take this back out. Let's make that 0. Okay, so now we're back to $400 for everything. We're well within our number. Okay, next thing is transportation. So transportation is you need gas for your cars. You need oil. You got an oil change. You're going to have to get tires every once in a while. You're going to have to, there are some things that might be major that you might not be able to cover here, especially if you're in debt repayment mode. But everyone is going to have to get oil changes. Everyone's going to have to change their wiper fluid. Everyone's going to have to, get new tires and all that. So that goes in there. Auto insurance, license and taxes again. The next two lines you may or may not apply to you. Car replacement. Eventually, you're going to have to save up for whatever your next car is. And because we are very adamantly opposed to taking out loans for cars, if you're at the point where your car is getting a little older, this is where you'd have to start thinking about, well, when am I probably going to need to replace my car? And then what kind of car would I be able to get based on how much I can actually put in here? So this is where you'd enter that in and say, okay, I'm going to need another car in 2 years. And the kind of car that I can afford might only be $5,000 car based on what I can put in. So that kind of gets you there. Or you might say, I'm the best, the car I really want, I can get for $10,000 and I'm going to need it in 3 years. So you put that in. If you need a Corvette or a Ferrari, then you're going to have to put in a pretty big number to replace that. And you may have to supplement that through some other very lucrative means. If you're going to get a new car or a fancy car or a $25,000 car, that means you really have to bump this replacement fund up. And what we'll find is that if I were to do that in this budget for a family that makes $60,000 a year and has debt repayments, is that probably isn't going to work. So let's just go back up here and enter some stuff that's typical for at least for our family, more or less. Let's say $200 for vehicle gas between all the drivers. Oil and repairs and all that might be $50. And so this is per month. Auto insurance, I don't know what yours is. Ours is like $177 last I checked, but maybe $160 if you have, depending on the cars you have. License and taxes, $10. Now, one of the reasons we do this is because is not because every month you're going to have licensing or taxing or registration, but at least once a year you're going to have this on each vehicle, and so you can stockpile this in your envelope, and then when that thing comes in, you started putting it in 9 months ago, and so now you have $90 in there, and then you can pay for either all of your registration or a bulk of it based on what you've stockpiled, doing it this way. Car replacement, we're going to assume that this family is not actively able to do that. Their cars are going to maintain, or they're going to make it work. Then For us in Houston, tolls and easy tags are pretty critical for getting around the city. You may live in a place where you got to work downtown and you have parking. Other places, maybe you take a bus or the metro or subway or something like that. So you'd put anything like that in this category. So let's just say $60, and that covers all of those potential expenses. For us, it ends up being almost exclusively this easy tag or the tolls. We don't really have to pay for parking that much. Okay, now we get down to clothing. We have kids' clothes, spouses' clothes, and we have laundry. Now, the way that this budget works out is they currently do not have any extra money to put into these items, and we recognize you need this. Your socks blow out, your underwear gets old, your shirt gets hole in it, your kids grow. Kids seem to stretch in interesting ways. So this cannot go on as zero forever, but you'll see when we get to the end of this budget that we're being pretty conservative with everything, but still these end up being zero. And so we'll have to find a way to add to this if we want to allow our kids to keep eating and to grow. But let's assume right now, minimally, we have to do laundry. So we put in $10. There's your detergent. If you are going to a laundromat, this will probably be quite a bit higher. So just keep that in mind because then you'd be paying detergent and you'd be paying coins or services or something like that you'd have to pay for on a regular basis. This is assuming that you have washer and dryer already hooked up. Medical expenses. Okay, so again, 5 to 10%. This can get high fast depending on your health needs. Every family is a little bit different. Let's just assume that between the two of the working people, that one of them gets company health insurance. And let's just assume that health insurance for the whole family is $600. This is a place that really can throw the budget out of whack, and really you can't do that much about it. You need health insurance. You talk to Alexis about ways to maybe change your deductibles or change the kind of coverage you have, but this is going to be in there at some level. So I just put in $600. And it really depends on your company. If you do private insurance, or if you do Obamacare or Trump care, something government facilitated, then it'll change. So there's a lot of flexibility there. We like to have a thing for doctor copays. What this means is your kid gets an ear infection and you got to go in. You got to pay for that for most of us with our health insurance. So we just assume that if you have that maybe your copay be $25. Ours is actually it's always been like 50. And then now we recently just changed our health coverage over again for 2018 enrollment. And so I think ours is actually now like 100. So your copays could actually go way up. Dentist, again, think of that. A lot of times you'll get a basic dental insurance, which is preventative care is free, but it may not be the case. So if you're having to pay to go into the dentist, especially if someone's got teeth or braces or gum problems or whatever, this might have to be in there as well. Prescriptions. So there's a lot of ways to do this. There's I don't want to get in right now like HSAs or all that other stuff, but let's just assume that at some point you have to, maybe it's heart medicine, maybe it's asthma medicine, whatever it is. Let's assume that this family has a few prescriptions. And then let's also assume that OTC, over the counter, that's Tylenol, that's children's Benadryl, that's Advil or whatever. That's Band-Aids, perhaps. So let's just say this is where that family is. And what we'll find, and this will always be the case, is that for families that aren't making a ton of money, that basic health insurance and basic health care actually really exceeds what some of the recommended allocations are. So this is just a reality check that that kind of, where we are in America is that you'll probably, unless you're making a ton of money, you probably will see that your total percentage for medical and health is higher than what is kind of the recommended range. So we just kind of have to accept that. if you like, you can change this range and you can just fudge the number. But this is just kind of giving a ballpark. Okay, the next item. This is the personal stuff. So what is personal? It's we've put them in these categories. Really, you can put them in any category you like. Some of these that are here, maybe you put them under this other thing we call recreation. But what we've put here, and really it's kind of arbitrary. Some of them kind of, even when I looked at them, like, well, why do we have that there? But as long as it gets in the budget, it's fine. Company life insurance, post-tax. So what do we pay? What do we pay for to make sure that we have the life insurance plan? Maybe you use it. Maybe you do all private insurance. That's fine. Let's say it's $10. Term life insurance is really what you need. So if the company life insurance, a lot of times what that is they'll match your salary, or they'll give you a double, 2 times your salary for $10 or something like that. That's fine. Mostly what you need to make sure you have is term life insurance. So a term might be 25 or 30 years or something like that you're going to pay in for your primary, and then also your secondary breadwinner also needs to have some insurance on them. And the idea here is that if they die, one, you want to be able to pay for their funeral, and it's kind of a morbid statement, but if you don't have insurance, funerals could be, they could be $20,000 just for the basic expenses. So you got to make sure you have something in there. You can talk with Alexis about what would be right for your family, kind of what the limits are. But for a family like this make-believe family, you should be able to get something okay for maybe $75 a month for everybody, for the husband and the wife. Okay. We have other stuff in here that maybe you have, maybe you don't. This family is not going to be able to have a gym membership right now. They can't afford it. Miscellaneous activities, swimming lessons, zoo memberships, vacation Bible schools. This family right now cannot afford to do those. Babysitting, right now this family cannot afford to go out on dates. Toiletries and diapers, you have to have this, of course. So we've got maybe $30 for that. Cosmetics, the wife, maybe if she's the working wife, she's going to have to, have some sort of cosmetics. And so we've got that on minimum here, $10, and maybe hair care, $10. So this again is not high living, but this is enough to get you through the work week. Gifts. This is a category that we added, kind of midway. We didn't have this category in for a long time, but we added this in, and this is what you would put if you want to be able to buy a birthday present for your nephew, or chip in on your grandma's reunion present. Otherwise, you have to find that money somewhere else. So we try and put in a little bit in gifts. This family right now is having to send a note to everybody they know, or make a phone call and say, I'm sorry, right now, where we are in our finances, we can't afford to buy you gifts, but we'd love to send you a family photo, or we'd love to write you a poem or record a song for you. So right now, this family is not going to be able to give gifts. And same thing for immediate family gifts. So this is a gift for your wife or a gift for your kids. And right now, this family is also having to say, we are in beans and rice, aggressive, paying off debt mode. We are trying to get our budget together. And so right now we're foregoing gifts. Kind of painful, but you could go through and you can kind of see what I'm doing to see if you'd need to add to that. Okay, personal and miscellaneous. So we have a few categories that we use. Your categories may be different. If you're in aggressive mode, then these categories would be nothing. But that would be like so you can kind of read this, but we buy books on Amazon Kindle. All right, so we buy these digital books, and so this is a place where we can pay for that. Might be everybody, everybody likes to run half marathons, and so you need fees for that. So it could be stuff like that. Personal money for the kids, for the grown-ups. This is kind of, might call it an allowance. This is your ability to go get, a Starbucks whenever you want it, or something, go buy something, go rent a movie or something. But right now, this family, because of where they are, they don't have anything. And also this family right now cannot afford to pay for their dog or for the vet bills. So they've got that on zero. Okay. This other one, recreation. And again, you could put some of this recreation into personal, or you could put some of this personal into recreation. At the time, it made sense to us to put these here, and so we just left them. Vacation. This family doesn't have any vacation, and we've given them a kind of a very small $40 entertainment budget, which means that maybe once a month the family can go to the movies, or once a month they can treat themselves to, McDonald's or something. But right now they don't have anything in entertainment. They don't have much. Maybe it's, so we do things like that are cheaper, like go to the local beach. So that stuff doesn't cost much, but it's still, maybe that's the cost of pizza when you go down to the beach. We do that in cash. You can see on the side that there's these other categories, and I kind of zipped past this, and I didn't identify this ING. ING actually got bought out by someone else. This was basically just a higher yield savings account. So basically not an investment, right? It's just something that was getting better than our regular bank account at Wells Fargo. But this is basically, ING was just a high yield savings account that you can pull out of whenever you want with no charges. All right, so now we're down to this last one, goal setting. So this is important to, as you're scrolling through, to click on these little tabs and see what the notes are. You can read through them. 529s. We have 4 kids, so we have different sets of 529s. Are you doing extra Roth or IRAs, kid savings, extra 401ks, all this other stuff? So we left these in there because we want you to see that for us, we have all those things filled out, because that's just part of when you move forward in life and when you get your finances more clear, the savings and funding your future ends up becoming a lot more important than what you might be in right now, which is just trying to get out of the hole or trying to get traction. So eventually you're going to fill these things out, maybe an extra mortgage, company stock savings fund match. This is one that actually anybody, if you're doing anything, this is otherwise known as free money. So if your company does a stock savings fund, it's not a bad idea to put that in. And a lot of times it's like, for my company, it's like 1%, right? So if you do 1% pre-tax into this, then the company will match it with 1%. And sometimes they'll do a match which is a multiplier, like they'll match it with 4%. So if you can at all afford it, it's always helpful to put this free money match in stock savings fund. 401k, again, it's important to have a good investment strategy. What you'll see if you talk to Alexis, if you do look through any of our resources, is that if you are wanting to put money into that, the assumption is that when you've come up to this consumer debt, that this is all zero. So what we would recommend is before you put anything into investments or retirement, maybe, depending on the terms, maybe with the exception of a stock savings fund, but before you put anything into investment, that you have all of your consumer debts paid off. The one exception would be your mortgage. That a lot of times is such a large amount that it doesn't make sense to try and pay that off up front. And interest rates on that sometimes are, right now you could get in for, less than 4%. So that's a conversation to have with your financial wellness coach. But right now we would say this family, because they have debts, they don't have any of these items. Okay, so this is a filled out sheet. So we've put it all in, and then what's actually kind of fun is you put in everything that you're currently doing. So you might go through and say, okay, I'm spending cable TV this much. Oh, work lunches, yeah, I spend this much. So you fill it all in, and then you come all the way up here to this thing that's remaining pad, and you see where you are. Now, because I worked this one, maybe an hour ago, I worked it out and made sure the numbers were right. This family coincidentally did a perfect budget based on what they spend, and so they have a zero. But you could see, let's say if now this family, they were in a hard spot, they had to make some rough choices, and they took out a home equity loan. And so now they're obligated for $200 a month in that. Okay, so you can see that what that does now is that puts them in a negative. So that parentheses is saying it's negative. That puts them in the negative for this remaining. So it means that they're actually in the whole $200 a month. So as you go through this, what you may have to do is recognize, okay, so let's say I really like my home security at $25 a month, and I gotta have some house projects. My one of us really likes to build cabinets, and we really like to fix up the bathroom, and it's always going to cost us $50 a month. So, as you go through and you start filling these out, you'll get in whatever your actual numbers are. So, restaurants, yeah, we definitely eat $100 a month in restaurants, no problem. Now you come up and you realize, okay, that means I have to find $175 in this column C24, and I've got to find a way to get that back down to zero. So maybe you say, okay, if I'm going to do that, I have to start saving on electricity. Or maybe if I do that, I have to find a way to ride my bicycle or walk to work. So you say, okay, I can do that. I can get my gas by riding, by carpooling or riding my bike. I can get that down to 150. And maybe you say, well, because of my job, because of the way things are, I have to eat basic lunches. So maybe you say, well, then what that means is you can't have that much grocery. So you take some of the grocery out, and then you come and say, oh, well, $75. Well, I got to have everything else. And then maybe that's where you decide, well, I got to have all that, but I don't got to have cable TV. So you get rid of cable TV, and now you got to find $25. And so now maybe you come in and you realize, this year I've got enrollment, and I can actually change where my deductible, I can change my plan a little bit, or maybe the numbers are better, or maybe we can change some of the way we're working some of these other things. Maybe we say right now it's not realistic for us to do much entertainment, and maybe our lifestyle doesn't require that anyway. So we take that down to 20, and we say hair care. My wife has low maintenance and I'm bald, so I don't need hair care at all. So maybe you take that down to to $5. All right. So this is how you'd fill this out. You'd go through and try and make this thing look like zero. And then you look at your budget distribution and you say, okay, does this look like what I want it to look like? Okay. So for this family, the way I would interpret this, I'd say, yeah, okay, all this is great. There's a few things that don't seem quite right. One of them is this item, housing. It seems like they're spending more money on housing than a lot of other things. They're very, very much within a safe range. That number is actually okay, 25 to 35%. But maybe this family would say, this is a good time for us to talk about, living ultra lean or renting out that room in our basement to our college age friend or something. There are things you can do to try and get this down. But this is where that distribution comes in, is now you can actually go in and you can see where are you spending most of your money. Okay, so that's really the essence of this budget sheet. You can go through if you need to add in more things. So you can change the name on this. So if you instead of student loans, maybe you change this to Nelnet, and you can just type those in. Instead of instead of cable TV, maybe you use Direct TV. And so you can add these things exactly as you need them to be to personalize it for you. And it's perfectly okay to leave things blank. So I've shown you an example where a lot of stuff is left blank. If you have any questions, you can send us an email. Alexis at cisternandgrove.com. Mine, you can send it to Seth at cisternandgrove.com. You can also find us through the website. You can drop, give Alexis a call. She would love to have feedback. This is one of the things that we do for all the people we work with, is we try to get you to the point where you're able to do a zero balance budget, and where this budget starts looking better and better. It's not going to look great the first one you do. It may take a few iterations to get the numbers looking right, and it may take several months to even get yourself where that you can have zero. And it may even take it may take a year for some people before they can start adding stuff back in that they really like. So it's a template, it's a guideline, but as you can see, all these things roll up. And the power is that you can kind of make sure that you understand where you're spending your money. If you recognize, let's say this is you, and you recognize that I actually, instead of one car payment, let's see, where'd that go? one car payment. Maybe you actually have 2 car payments. So you could either write another one in, or you could just say my total car payment is now actually $650. You could see how real fast consumer debt starts to get big. You say, well, I have that. Plus the reality is, we've got some more credit cards on that. Maybe if that's actually, $200. Now you start to see that this red column, this consumer debt, starts overwhelming everything else. And so that's a real good visual for you to get a feel for what you're spending your money on. And you may find some of these columns look out of proportion to what the numbers we recommend, or look out of proportion to what you think they are. And so that's also an important thing. So I'm going to leave it at that. Hopefully that gets you the bones for how to fill this thing in. If you're clever, you're welcome to change, the formulas, but right now this should be flexible enough to enter it in as is. And hopefully it'll work for you, and give us a call. Let us know how you're doing with it. We can set something up. Alexis does Skype. She'll do it over the phone, or she can do it in Skype. We can set something up to help you work with your budget and get it looking right, and to get your goals looking the way they want to be. Especially getting to this bottom, this goal setting. We want to get the other stuff knocked away so that you can get this goal setting up to what you really need to fulfill your dreams and to have that future you want. So thanks for checking this out. Bye.